I heard a story about a 5-year-old boy. He loved the piano. Anytime that he got a chance, he would sit down and piddle around. He'd never had lessons or any kind of formal training. He was often told that he was too small and too young to play the piano. But in spite of those comments, he continued to practice and practice. The only song he knew how to play was Chopsticks. Just a very simple tune, but he played it again and again. One day his father surprised him. He got tickets for them to go to the symphony and hear this world-renowned Italian pianist. This man was one of the greatest piano players that had ever lived. And as they were walking to their seats there in the auditorium, the little boy saw the beautiful grand piano behind the curtain. While no one noticed, he snuck over and sat down on the piano bench and began to play his elementary version of Chopsticks. About that time, the curtain began to rise. Everyone was thinking they were going to see this world-famous master pianist. Instead, they saw a little boy hunched over the piano playing Chopsticks. He was so caught up in his world, he didn't know anybody was watching. When he realized what was happening, he was petrified. And just as he was about to get up and run for his life, he felt two big arms reaching around him, with the hands landing on the piano keys. It was the master pianist. He whispered in the little boy's ear, "Keep playing." As the little boy continued to play his simple rendition of Chopsticks, this world-renowned pianist began to play a Beethoven symphony piece that was scored in the same cadence and the same key. Under the direction of the master, he brought the rest of the orchestra in. First, he brought in the woodwinds, then the brass, then the percussion. The boy's father sat there with tears coming down his cheeks, couldn't believe what he was hearing. He never dreamed that simple tune that he heard in his living room each day would no longer sound like Chopsticks, but now it would become a full, beautifully orchestrated Beethoven symphony. What was the difference? The master stepped in. And sometimes in life, you may not feel like you have the talent, the wisdom, the know-how. The good news is, God does. When you use what you have, the master will step in. He'll put his hands on top of your hands. He'll take what you think is very average. Average gifts, average talent, average ability. But when the master steps in, he'll put his super with your natural, and supernatural things will begin to happen. Like that little boy, you'll be amazed. You'll think, I know what I normally sound like. I know what I'm capable of. How did I end up like this? Here's how. The master stepped in. I remember when I first started ministering 10 years ago, my first few sermons were so basic and so elementary. Like this little boy, I'm sure they sounded about like Chopsticks. And don't you say amen. I had never really ministered before, but I was doing the best that I could, using what God had given me. The negative thoughts bombarded my mind, saying, "Joel, you don't have what it takes. You're not a minister. You're too shy. You're too quiet. You better stay in your safe zone." I had to keep shaking those thoughts off and reminded myself that I am a fully loaded person. I'm anointed, I'm equipped, I'm talented. I can do all things through Christ. What happened? The master stepped in. God put his hands on my hands. He put his voice in my voice. I discovered talent in me that I didn't even know I had. If you'd have told me 10 years ago that one day I'd be ministering in Yankee Stadium, I would have said, "Yeah, right. And you can land an airplane safely in the Hudson River." Friends, when the master steps in, supernatural things are going to happen. Some of you think that you could never accomplish your dreams. You think you don't have the talent, the resources, the connections. You may not, but know this, God does. And as you take steps toward your destiny, God is going to show up. You have to put a demand on your faith. If you play it safe all the time, you'll never really know what's on the inside. God is going to take your natural and mix His super with it, and instead of just playing chopsticks like the little boy, God's going to bring in the percussion. That means you're going to get supernatural breaks. Just when you thought it couldn't get any better, God's going to bring in the brass. That is the right people. Then the woodwinds, that's the right opportunity. Before long, you're going to be hitting on all cylinders. It's going to sound like a beautiful orchestra. That buried treasure is going to come out. And you're going to know like I know. This is not just my talent. This is not just my ability. This is the Master joining in. This is God taking my ordinary and making it extraordinary.